Good evening. The February 20th, 2025 meeting of the Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees is hereby called to order. Won't you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So by way of roll, I think we have some folks still trickling in, but present at the moment, we do have a quorum with trustees Mitchell, Cross, Rattan, and Hamill. And Trustee Jennings is joining us by phone. Do we have her on the phone yet? I think she'll be joining us momentarily. And Trustee Smith-Everett is caught up in traffic, so she will be here as well. And in the meantime, let's get started with our awards and recognition, my favorite part of the board meeting. And Dr. Korb, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. We have two students to spotlight this evening, so I had a chance to meet them, Emily Crosby and Maya Wallace. So if you would come to the podium, we talked a little bit, and so they will share their story. They both play soccer, and so they'll talk to you a little bit about what brought them here.
All right.
Hello, my name is Emily Crosby. I was always originally planning on coming to Johnson County because I knew I wanted a good education and for it to, be affordable for me because I knew I was going to have to pay for my own college. One thing I thought I was never going to do again was play soccer because in high school I lost all my confidence of myself as a player, but once I found out that Johnson County had a women's soccer team, I was like, let's put my foot out there and might as well try and see what would happen. The worst thing that could happen would be no, I'm not going to play. I'm still going to come here. I'm still going to have fun. But I did make the team, which was amazing, and I was very excited. And then, I found myself really falling in love with the sport again, and I really thank my coaches and my teammates for that a lot. And just feeling very comfortable here, it really made me find that love for the game again. And now I'm an All-American soccer player, and I'm going on to Missouri Western State to pursue my academic and soccer stuff again. So that's very exciting. And I hope to become a sports psychologist in the future as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Maya Wallace, and I'm also a sophomore on the soccer team. And I didn't really know if I was going to be able to go to college because I didn't have any family members before me going to college. And when I found Johnson County and they offered me to come and play, it was kind of scary at first because I didn't know what to do, how to enroll, and Johnson County kind of made it super duper easy to figure out everything I needed to do and what I needed to help me to get to that point. I'm also going to play at Rutgers University after this year, and I'm super excited about that. And all my counselors that have helped me here, I had an academic counselor for athletes directly. Yeah, and it was a great opportunity because I didn't really know what to do, and they kind of guided me. And so now I'm going to Rockhurst, and yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Maya and Emily. Questions for these two fine young ladies? Trustee Cross.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chair. I certainly appreciate both of you. Where are you both from, may I ask? Emily?
I'm from Olathe, Kansas.
Okay.
And I went to Shawnee Mission North, so like Shawnee.
And then you chose to go to Missouri? Both of you? I went to UMKC Law, and we certainly appreciate our Missouri partners supporting our students. So both impressive stories, and thank you for sharing them.
Trustee Rattan.
I love the thread that weaves through both of yours was something you thought you weren't going to do or no one had done before, but you both have done it. So you're both trailblazers, so I see why you selected them both together. And I really love girls soccer. I'm old enough to know that our school didn't have girls soccer, and there were a couple of girls that were always trying to get soccer, and now it's the thing, right? And I have a daughter who played soccer, so I love the game. What positions do you play?
I'm a center back.
Okay.
And then I'm like an outside forward. So
Wonderful. Well, keep doing what you're doing. Keep breaking those glass ceilings or on the field, in the classroom, and believe in yourself. You've already come, sounds like, and done some things that you didn't know that you were going to be able to do. And there's some little girl watching you and looking up to you.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee
I
Mitchell?
was just going to say I like Emily's phrase, let's put my foot out there. I thought that was good.
Very appropriate.
Yeah, no pun intended, right? Any other questions or comments? You know, I just kind of want to echo what Trustee Rattan had to say. So, Emily, you came for academics and found yourself in soccer again. And Maya, you came for soccer and found yourself in academics. And both of you put yourself into a position that you weren't very comfortable in. And that's incredibly courageous. And you're reaping the rewards for that. And that's one of the things that we love about Johnson County Community College is that you can come here and feel safe to explore being a first-generation college student or finding yourself again in a sport that you love. How wonderful is that? Maya, what's your academic endeavors? What do you want to do?
I want to do early childhood education and just be like that kind of person that I was given. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my goal.
That's wonderful. Do a little coaching maybe?
Maybe on the side.
Maybe on the side? Yeah, well, thank you very much for sharing your stories, and best of luck to both of you. Sorry we're losing you to the Missouri side, but like Trustee Cross, I'm a UMKC grad, so it's all good. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, and that's it, right?
And that is all of our awards and recognitions tonight.
It's ongoing.
So I'm going to apologize in advance that I'm on the tail end of a cold. And so you can probably hear, this is not my normal, movie voice that everybody loves to hear. I'll hopefully make it through the board meeting. If not, Trustee Smith Everett has my back here, so.
Sure.
Now is the time in the meeting for the open forum section of our board. The open forum section of the board agenda is a time for members of the community to provide comments to the board. There will be one open forum period during each regularly scheduled board meeting. Comments are limited to 5 minutes unless a significant number of people plan to speak. In that instance, the chair may limit a person's comments to less than 5 minutes. In order to be recognized, individuals must register at the door 15 minutes prior to each regularly scheduled board meeting. When addressing the board, registered speakers are asked to remain at the podium, should be respectful and civil, and are encouraged to address individual personnel or student matters directly with the appropriate college department. As a practice, the college does not respond in this setting when the matter concerns personnel or student issues or matters that are being addressed through our established grievance or suggestion processes or otherwise the subject of review by the college or board. There are no registered speakers at tonight's meeting. And so with that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is board reports. And we'll start with Mr. Grigsby and the Student Senate report. It's so good to see you.
Yeah. Good evening. I will apologize because I am also on the tail end of a cold, so I am.
I feel you.
Yeah, doing my best to hang in there. So it's been a pretty productive month for Student Senate. We have 3 new clubs that we helped establish. We have the Aggies, which is a farming and sustainability club. They have some very admirable goals of helping out on the farm and trying to grow some food to donate to the Student Basic Needs Center. So we're really happy to help them out. The Christians on Campus Club and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes are 2 other clubs that we also helped get approved. We've approved several budget requests since the beginning of the semester from the International Club's budget, Luna's semester budget, the DECA Business and Marketing Club's travel budget, and the Black Student Union's budget for the Black Business Expo. We have several new senators who have joined us this semester, so we're very happy with that. We do have a very big turnover rate, so we're constantly glad to be getting new senators in and out. From there, we are planning out our service week and trying to figure out what all projects we will be doing with service week up in April. We are currently looking to work with Midwest Recovery Center to do a hygiene kit drive. We will be working with JCCC's Connect program and work with Growing Futures early education program. Some other events across campus. We had tabled at the Involvement Fair as well as the Honors Fair. We had our first interclub of the semester, 2-7-25. And we are working to put together clubbies for the last interclub of the year. That is about everything I have. I now yield my time to the board for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Grigsby? Trustee Cross and then Trustee Smith Everett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Grigsby, good to see you again. Which Christian groups did you welcome in?
The Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which was previously a club on campus, but from my understanding, they kind of fell apart during COVID. It was a rough time for a lot of clubs, so we welcomed that back on. And then the second one was Christians on Campus.
What is Christians on Campus?
I'm not entirely sure. They are all kind of very similar to me, but just another Bible study program on campus, something that all the kind of Christian clubs have in common.
Well, good. I'm glad to have Christian clubs. I grew up Christian, went to Catholic school, and in my experience, Christians know what it's like to be persecuted and
Absolutely.
and welcome everybody into the marketplace of ideas. So I'm glad you all did that. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. We were very excited to have them on campus and having their own Bible study and space and club where they can practice their religion.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Trustee Smith Everett.
Thank you. Mine was an extension of Trustee Cross's question. I just wondered, those are new groups, those three that you mentioned?
Yes,
They're
yes.
all new? So when they become a new group, is there anything that's officially done? Like, do they get an official budget, or they're just recognized as a official group from Student Senate?
They are recognized as an official group first from Student Senate, and then a club or organization has to be a club for at least one calendar year before they can start receiving budget requests through the Student Senate.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions for Mr. Grigsby? Sounds like the year's off to a great start. Thank you, as always, for your tremendous report. We love
Absolutely.
seeing you.
Yep.
All right. Next up is our college lobbyist and Mr. Dick Carter. Nothing going on in Topeka, right?
Well, given the month that's gone by since the last time I chatted with you, there's quite a bit that's going on. In fact, the legislature, the House is still on the floor doing emergency final action on the bills that they worked on general orders today. So I'm paying a little attention to my phone screen and watching some of those votes come in. This is turnaround week. Tomorrow, Friday, the 20th or 21st is their turnaround deadline. And so the Senate finished its work yesterday. The House is wrapping up its work right now. They will take off Friday and Monday and return to committee work on Tuesday, where they will be working House bills in the Senate and Senate bills in the House. And there's a few blessed bills out there. That's the term we use to keep a bill alive. And so we have a few of those. There'll be some more probably after this evening that didn't make the turnaround deadline that we're tracking. The budget has been the big thing this year. Again, the legislature has taken on its shoulders the development of the state budget. The House has been very good about also recognizing the governor's budget recommendations as they've been working through the budget process. I've heard from a few legislators that have been intimately involved in the process that cramming a state budget into a 3-week time period in one side of the House, in one side of the legislature, has been very difficult. And we knew going into this that there would be some bumps in the road and some hiccups, and I think we're going to see that. On Tuesday, the Senate Ways and Means Committee will get a briefing on what occurred in House Bill 2007. That's the big budget bill. And they will start doing their work. Again, this is very different than we've done it in the past. At one point, the community college system was about flat for where we were in fiscal year 2025. We're in fiscal year 2025 right now. There was across the board 1.5% cuts to state government and to the dollars that are appropriated, with some additional haircuts. And so we went backwards a little bit on where we were. I think we're still in a pretty good position comparatively when you look at some of the other state agencies and some of the other institutions. But just for our own purposes, in non-tiered credit hour grants, our appropriation dollar amount right now, and again this could change, is $16,873,000. Similarly, in tiered technical education, we're at about $8.6 million. And then for business and industry apprenticeships, Johnson County is at $2.98 million, 2.98 that is. And those are all broken out in the House bill that has made its way over to the Senate Ways and Means Committee. As far as capital outlay is concerned, we're at about $704,000. And then again, student success is a big piece of the budget that we look at, and that was one of the areas that got cut. We're at about $2.194 million in the area of student success. So we'll continue to monitor and advocate for those dollars. It would be great if we could get up to the fiscal year 25 level. That's going to be a continued effort now that we're over in the Senate side, and that work takes off in earnest on Tuesday. If you'll look at my report, there's a spelling error. It says tax, T-A-X-E. I think it used to say taxes, and I amended the byline, but maybe that's a good play on the word axe. The two bills that I mentioned there with fairly long narrative are bills that have come out of the Kansas Chamber. These are a couple of, at least one of the bills is an attempt that they make every year on single factor formula for commercial purposes. That bill will get a hearing, as will a bill that they have introduced that sets up a trigger mechanism that would reduce income tax rates if revenues come into the state at a certain level based on the rate of inflation. We'll see if those go anywhere. Again, the governor has mentioned multiple times she's not interested in looking at tax bills. We've had at least one veto override. I think we're going to see some more vetoes come after this turnaround period, and so we'll kind of get a sense of where folks are at based on some of the voting numbers that we've seen on some bills, just what the temperature is in the legislature for overriding vetoes. Again, we've got that five vote margin on both sides, both in the House and the Senate, so it's a difficult road to hoe when it comes to trying to override a veto. But again, it's dependent upon the subject matter. Still talking about property taxes, the Senate wants to cap valuations through a constitutional amendment. The House has a different constitutional amendment that would look at rolling averages, kind of very similar to ag evaluation process. Both of those would be designed to reduce property taxes on residents in the state of Kansas. We're still looking at the statewide mill reduction for the EBF, which is the Educational Building Fund, and the State Institutions Building Fund, as well as 1.5 mills off the statutory 20 mills that the state collects for K-12 education. If you combine those two together, which is what I think they'll do, that's a 3 mill reduction. Not a huge impact, but again, it demonstrates what the state can do without tapping into what the local units of government, like this board sitting around the table, do when it comes to property tax. House is going to have its own tax proposal that comes out, property tax proposal that comes out probably the first week of March. We think we'll have some hearings, so we're going to continue that conversation with regard to property tax throughout the rest of this session. We've had quite a few higher ed related bills, and I'm only going to talk about a few of them. They're listed in the report, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. But with regard to the Kansas Promise scholarship bill, that bill was expanded to include a category for technical institutions that meet either nonprofit or for-profit status, as long as they meet the criteria set out in the expanded form of the bill. And they have permission from the Board of Regents to participate. They can do that. The good news is that as part of the amendments that came with that bill on the Senate floor, they've increased the fund to $15 million. We're at $10 million right now, and when you look at the obligations for the students that are already in the program, we're coming up to that. We're coming up to that ceiling, and so that is good as well. Regulatory issues, licensure issues, that's been a big buzzword in the Kansas legislature this year. It is across the United States, and we're going to continue to see efforts to reduce regulatory environments, reduce licensure. We have licenses for a reason. In professions, we have regulations in place for a reason, whether it's local units of government or whether it's professional regulations. There are some bills out there that I'm tracking. They're in this report simply because we train some of those professionals. And so we want to make sure that we still have the ability to train those folks that they're not reducing or taking away those licensure requirements for some of those folks in the health professions, technical professions, along those lines. We were instrumental in helping a bill move through the process that we definitely will benefit from with regard to motorcycle driver training instructors. We provided testimony on that bill when it was in the House Transportation Committee. And simply it would allow a license holder from another state with a motorcycle designation to be able to train or teach in our course here in Kansas. The bill was amended to also include the standard class of driver's license, so C-class is what we call it. If someone possesses an out-of-state C-class license, they can also participate in instructing or teaching in that program. It's good news because we're on the state line, and it is hard to find those instructors. And so that is a bill that is now over in the Senate, and we'll go through that process again as far as providing support once it is scheduled for a hearing in the Senate Transportation Committee. I think the last bill that I'll talk about, and I don't know if it's a good one to end on or not, but there's a tenure bill out there, and it is political. We're mentioned, but we're not in it. And when I say we're mentioned, we're defined in the bill, but it doesn't impact our faculty by the way that the process that we use for due process and for tenure. The bill is not out of committee. It will likely be blessed and discussed at a later time. It is tied to an effort at the regional university level. There's a lawsuit ongoing. Legislators are typically not interested in hearing legislation when there's a legal proceeding ongoing, but it's out there, and we're going to continue to watch it and make sure that we're aware that it doesn't impact our efforts on our campus. Odd place to stop, Madam Chair, but I think I'll stop there and see if there's any questions. It's been a lot. We've had 4 weeks of hard and fast committee hearings, and really the budget process is the key piece. And so it's going to take some effort to make sure that stays whole as we continue to move through the Senate review of that budget process.
Well, that was a great summary. Thanks for hitting some of the high points. Questions for Mr. Carter? Trustee Smith-Everett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Carter, my main question is, do you think they'll be able to meet their deadline? They wanted to make this a very tight session, and I keep hearing how hard it is to get everything in and through, and there's some ramming going on that doesn't seem to be given its full light for people to weigh in on. And I've never seen this in the 10 years I've been watching Kansas legislature closely. Do you have any, are you a betting man, or do you think we'll?
Oh, I might be, but it's interesting because we've had some conversations with some of the newly elected legislators who are experiencing this for the first time. They don't know anything different. And for those of us that have been a part of the process for decades, we're questioning how this is going to come off. I do think they'll be done. I think they'll adjourn sine die on April 12th. I think there will be some things left unfinished. I think that chances are likely, depending on how the budget is passed or how the budget works, there could be a special session. And so whether that's later in May or June or at some point during the summer, I think there's a high probability.
What things do you think we will, they'll not be able to get to by the end of their?
Well, I just think that when you have a group of professionals that start the budget process, essentially when the legislature adjourns and goes home for the next year, that process starts over. We're doing it differently, whereas the legislative staff in the Legislative Research Department and the revisers are writing that budget bill. They write it anyhow, but they're doing it at the direction of legislative leaders. And so that process looks very different, and it's very time intensive, it's very staff intensive, and there's a lot of vetting that needs to occur. And we're seeing some of that frustration play out in the committee process when questions are being asked and then budget chairs, subcommittee chairs are saying, well, we didn't have the opportunity to ask that question. So that's where I think we'll see some hiccups and hopefully nothing catastrophic occurs, but there are caseloads that we learn about after the revenue consensus estimating group meets in April, and they meet after tax day. So sometime in April 20th, something like that, they'll meet and they'll come back with a picture of what they think the revenue and the receipts are going to look like for the state of Kansas. That's a real problem if you've already passed a budget and gone home.
Right. Okay,
So.
thank you.
Trustee Cross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Carter, thank you. My neighbor teaches at the University of Kansas, and he's worried about the tenure bill. And I think for our institution, in the master agreement last year, didn't we put tenure by contract for our faculty?
Well, we have due process.
What am I
It's in the
saying? Sorry.
statute, but it's also built into our contract if the statute went away. But we don't have tenure per se.
What is
We
the
never
difference,
have.
I guess? I am embarrassed to ask. I thought that was...
So effectively, the difference is that due process is tied to the K-12 standard by which you would remove an individual instructor and is functionally separate from concepts of academic freedom within the classroom. Within our master agreement, we have provided protections for both, so we have a sort of a pseudo tenure approach. Because tenure is not extended beyond the university ranks into the community college level as a particular.
By statute?
Right. Yes.
Yes, sir. And so then we do it by contract?
Effectively, yes.
And I'm just a litigator. I'm sorry to ask again. What exactly is tenure? It's the right to that process, or?
It is the formal right to both the process for due process to be removed, but it is couched within protections that come from academic freedom as defined by the Association of Governing Boards and the AAUP. So it is tied to not only the right to an appropriate process to be removed from the job, but protections that process cannot be initiated for things like dealing with controversial topics within the classroom that are tied to your specific field, or conduct of legally approved experimentation, those sorts of things, which might rankle some people based on personal, moral, or ethical issues. Those cannot be used to remove an individual.
And I appreciate that greatly. And here's another Moneyball reference. I couldn't wrap my mind around sabermetrics till I understood OBP, right? On base percentage, and now you can be on the track to war and everything else to understand this new range of metrics. But so it's, to boil it down, it's tenure and other academic freedom protections.
Yes.
And I know it's much more complicated, but I can build from there, right?
Effectively, yes.
I'm sorry for the delay. I just wanted to make sure.
That's your kind of foundation.
Yes, sir. And then we do it by statute, by contract.
We do it by contract, with our contract being tied to the statute as designed for due process in K-12.
And so I'm sorry to take you, thank you, Dr. McLeod. And Dick, thank you for your time. I'm just asking, will this pass? Or I'm a little out of it here in my practice and family life, so will it make it past turnaround day?
I guess we'll see. It'll have to be blessed. It's politics.
But it doesn't matter if it's blessed. And we've seen this before, right? We saw this.
Nothing ever dies in Topeka.
Well, right. In the Brownback administration, when they brought national politics to Kansas, we saw log rolling at the end of legislative sessions, right?
Yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see where it comes out.
Right. We just need to be vigilant.
And that's why I'm tracking that particular piece, just to make sure that we don't get included in any form.
Right. We have you, we have Heather Morgan, and we've got other allies on the ground there in both parties.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to rant. But.
No, you're fine. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Carter? Thanks as always for your report, and we'll trust you to bring us back some more information next month when.
I note that you didn't say good news,
All
so
positive.
I'll bring you back more information. I can promise that.
Just the messenger.
I'm hedging my bets here. All right, thank you, Mr. Carter. All right, next up with the College Council report is Mr. Jason Arnett.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I apologize for not submitting a report earlier, but due to many snow disruptions, we haven't met until this afternoon. So this is our first meeting of 2025 College Council, and we That doesn't mean shared governance wasn't continuing. Both staff council and academic branch council have met at least twice in that time. We just had the unlucky schedule of snow. So today in our meeting, we began establishing procedures for returning topics that come up to us back to the other councils. Most noticeably, the communication issue that resulted in the report we issued last month is going back to staff council for them to close out and own after that. We took in some information today around some concerns and about several things. Not sure how much to talk about those things because we were very rushed in our meeting. Our schedules being what they were. We discussed also how college council and cabinet can communicate more clearly and succinctly. And so I think we're on a good plan with that. As always, communication is going to be our key issue to work forward to make sure that we're defining what shared governance is at the college or establishing all the procedures and everything. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that on behalf of all of my colleagues who are serving on a shared governance council, we appreciate having or being included in the process of searching for the next president of the college. It shows the level of commitment that the board and the college has to shared governance here, and that should be meaningful to many of us who work here. And I just wanted to say thank you for that opportunity very much. So that's all I have for you this month.
Short and sweet. Any questions for Mr. Arnett? Yes, Trustee Cross.
About how many employees do we have?
Full and part-time?
Yes, ma'am.
We have, do you know the number? It's like 2,500.
500 thereabouts.
Yeah. We have just under 1,000, so 900 and some full-time.
Well, for the range of human beings watching this, one person this week kept saying we had 900 employees. And I was not, believe it or not, looking to be confrontational, so I didn't correct the person. But we have about 2,500, 2,300 is my review from the website.
We have around just over 900 full-time,
Yes.
but 2,500 total. Yes, with full and part-time. Accurate, Christina? Okay.
Thank you.
In case
And
you're
thank
asked
you,
at a
Jason.
trivia party.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who it was later, but it drove me nuts. I just didn't want to correct him.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Arnett? Trustee Smith Everett.
Just out of curiosity, not to go down a rabbit hole, but what is the current communication between College Council and Cabinet?
Well, mostly it's resulted in Dr. Korb, can you call Cabinet for us? Or Elisa Waldman, who represents Cabinet in College Council. And we're figuring out when issues go to Cabinet, how that is supposed to look, how it's supposed to work, and then how issues might come back from Cabinet to us and how we would deal with it from there. So opening conversations today.
Okay, very good.
Issues or conversations, not everything
right,
is
yeah.
an issue.
Right, yeah.
Negative connotation there.
Let's hope
I collect comic books, so everything's an issue.
All right. Anything else? Thank you so much for your report, and thank you and your colleagues in shared governance for participating in the presidential search process. We value the input and felt like that sort of conversational dialogue with our candidates would be important to you and give us critical feedback. So make sure you all complete the surveys and give us some feedback so that we'll have that to consider as well.
Will do.
Chair, one last thing.
Yes, Trustee Cross.
I echo what she says and I concur. Are you DC or Marvel?
I'm from Kansas, so I'm a Superman guy. Yeah.
DC.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
But I like Marvel too, so there you go.
The artists just go back and forth.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, squirrel.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, next up
I read
is
that book
the
too.
Faculty Association. And I believe we're going to get our report tonight from Gideon. Is it Nay? Nay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. College Faculty Association President Andrea View asked me to give some updates, a little information about myself as well, and some programs that I've been working with here on campus. I am Assistant Professor of Human Sciences in the Science Department, which means I'm an assistant professor, which means I'm in my first 3 years here at the college, and I teach human sciences, which means I teach primarily anatomy and physiology courses here on campus. I came here 3 years ago, transferring from Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids, where I held a similar position. And my family moved to the area looking to be closer to family and obviously to work here at JCC because of the excellent reputation of the college. The college has been extremely welcoming to both me and my family. My oldest daughter goes to daycare at HCDC, and my youngest is hopefully starting there next year. My family always talks about the family picnic, the picnic every year. I'd have a memory of my oldest carrying 2 bags of cotton candy around, and it's become a big tradition in our family to attend, and been a very welcoming part of our year. Some other programs that I've been involved with around campus, I've been working with the Global Engagement Office and Karen Miller, where I designed a new study abroad course that traveled for the first time to Ecuador in May. We took 13 students, visited the city of Quito. We went to Wild Sumaco, which is a biodiversity sanctuary in the cloud forest of the Andes. They spent 4 or 5 days there. Making scientific observations, journaling, learning about the biodiversity in the Andean cloud forest. Then we spent 4 or 5 days in the Galapagos Islands, where they studied evolution, biodiversity, in one of the best places to do that. So it was a new opportunity that is opened up to our students and one that we continue to do in the future. We have 9 students signed up for our trip this coming May. I'll be traveling with Professor Nancy Holcroft Benson. I should have mentioned that last year I traveled with Professor Lonnie Witters. It's kind of a unique course in that this is one of the first study abroad courses that's actually listed under a science prefix. So it is a biology course that kind of runs concurrently with Bio 150, which is our biodiversity course, what makes it kind of unique. I also have been participating in CURE in the Classroom, which is part of an NSF grant that I am sure you have all heard about previously. In my classroom, because I teach anatomy, we are looking at the biological profile of our 6 human skeletons that we have in the anatomy department. So my students are studying, investigating the skeletons to determine their sex, age, potential ancestry backgrounds, and stature, all parts of the biological profile. Each semester, they're doing one of those. So last semester, my students investigated and estimated the sex of our 6 skeletons, 3 males and 3 females, and they presented their findings at the CURE Poster Symposium previously. Also, the STEM faculty retreat in December, that was hosted by the Grants Office and Faculty Development. I presented a poster about my CURE in the classroom and my students' findings. There were also breakout sessions with the Math Pathways Project, Academic Alert and Early Alert, Access Services, Student Flex Plan, How to Plan for Classes, and AI Explorers in the college. It was a very productive conference, and it brought together STEM faculty from around the department. That was funded by the JCCC Foundation. Some events to look forward to coming up: the STEM Poster Symposium, which runs in the spring semester. My students will be presenting their posters there this semester, along with hundreds of other STEM students from across campus. That is on May 1st from 8:30 to 4 p.m. and then an evening session from 5:30 to 8 p.m. That's in the CoLab, and it's facilitated each year by Professors Lori Slavin and Brenda Edmonds, and a whole lot of volunteers, judges, and members of the college community. Again, supported by the JCCC Foundation. The Metro Kansas City Model United Nations Conference will be coming to campus on April 2nd, so you'll see a whole bunch of middle and high school students here for that. That's facilitated by Dr. Brian Wright, who is also the JCCC Model UN team host. So there'll be 30 schools signed up this year. In past years, we've had schools from all around the metro, as well as Arkansas and Oklahoma. If you are looking to interact with students as part of the Model UN, they'll be all over the Midwest Trust Center, Regner Center, and in the GEB.
All right, thank you. That was a lot of information. That was a great report. Any questions for, is it Dr. Ney?
It is Dr. Ney.
Any questions for Dr. Ney? Trustee Rattan.
Thanks for continuing to expand the subject matter that is covered during the STEM poster symposiums and CURE. It first started with the soil analysis, and now there's so many other subjects covered, and so thanks for coaching students to do that work.
Yep, and I should say that Professors Melanie Harvey and Heather Seitz, their NSF grant, they've been doing the legwork and have been doing a fantastic job.
Any other questions? Trustee Cross and then Trustee Smith-Everett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Ney, for presenting. I'm trying to think of another leadership style where someone so continuously and repeatedly puts other people forward, like Dr. View does. But the presidential candidates that have come forward this week, have you had a chance or heard anything about?
Personally, I have not had as much chance, but I know that members of the Faculty Association are participating and looking at that closely.
What have you heard, may I ask?
We have not had a chance to, we have a meeting coming up next week, but we have not had a chance to discuss it as a group yet.
Yeah, make sure to fill out the survey and we'll get your results back.
Well, I hate taking the phone calls where I get accused of not asking what somebody thought. So it's like making a record that we asked. I asked.
Trustee Smith-Everett.
Thank you. I just want to say welcome to JCCC. I agree with Trustee Cross that I really appreciate Professor View continually bringing faculty forward that we may not have had the pleasure to meet. And I'm really glad to hear that you're feeling like you're finding a home here and you're feeling welcome. That's our intent, and we'd love to assist you if there's anything we could ever do, but thank you for your very thorough report.
Sounds like your kiddos are getting used to the campus early, which is always a good thing. I want to know if
Cavaliers already.
Yeah, right. I want to know if the skeletons have names.
Well, officially they are unknown 1 through 6, but a couple of them did get names.
Sort of.
Yeah, throughout the semester, yeah.
All right. Thank you for your report, Dr. Ney. Much appreciated. Next on the agenda is the Johnson County Education Research Triangle Report, and Trustee Smith-Everett.
Thank you. JCERT received almost a flat $2 million in sales tax in January 2025, distributed $700,000 to each of the 3 university entities. The receipts were down 1.3% from December and 1.5% from a year ago in January 2024. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Trustee Smith-Everett? All right. Next on the agenda is the KACC report, and Trustee Cross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. KACC did not have a formal meeting again this month. We did meet with legislators last month. Our next meeting will be Friday, April 11th, 2025. It'll be the PTK recognition event. Is this our first year back in Topeka after a hiatus?
I think so.
We'll be back at the Hotel Topeka at City Center. Then May 30th and 31st, we'll be at Highland Community College up in Atchison. Our future meeting dates will be at Garden City in August, and then out at Cowley, or down at Cowley in December 2025. And Heather listed all this out from April 2026, PTK event will be back in Topeka. And then the May 2026 event will be at Allen County. So as much as I like hearing myself talk, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay. Any questions for Trustee Cross? Trustee Smith-Everett.
Can we just get those sent to us? Because could not write as fast as you were rattling them.
Yeah, no, I'm happy
Just
to.
the closest dates. I think you gave 3 right off the bat that are coming up. Is that
Yeah, I
right?
can give them to you again, or I'll forward this
Thank you.
again. So
I do want to attend one. It's been a while, and I think it's important particularly in the political waters we're in, to be up on our other partners in Kansas and joining some of the more local ones, chatting with people and getting to see.
It is good to go. I mean, trustees Cook and Ingram were long our representatives there, and I think that it's an interesting alliance that we have with them. I say something every month, I guess, but you know, you like me have history outside of Johnson County, and there's other places in Kansas, and it's important that they know that we know that. And you know, I'm blessed to have been all over the state, and I'm happy to go to those things. So I'd encourage you to go and encourage anybody else to go. So.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I did want to mention that Trustee Jennings joined us a bit ago, and so Trustee Jennings, if you have any comments or questions along the way, just give us a shout out, and we'll look at the ceiling and pretend like you're up there.
I'm here.
All right, thank you so much. Next up is the foundation report, and Trustee Rattan, you always have a great report for us, so what's going on with the foundation?
Thank you, Chair Rail. The Cohen Community Series tickets are still available. For general admission tickets, visit jccc.edu/Lee. We're thrilled to host Lee Bryce as a performer this year, expecting a sold-out crowd and a special VIP experience prior to the concert. VIP tickets can be purchased for $270 per seat, which includes the reception before the event. Again, jccc.edu/VIP to get your VIP tickets. The concert will be on March 1st. Fox 4, The Bluff at the Polo Fields Development, Hawthorne Bank, in connection with the Rainier Family Foundation and Central Bank of the Midwest are all sponsors of this event. Nerman Museum Match Made in Heaven opening was a great success. Over 1,000 attendees enjoyed the incredible exhibit, which will run for the next 6 months. A reminder that the JCCC Foundation will partner with the Nerman Museum and the JCCC Fashion Design and Merchandising Department to put on a unique Met Gala-styled fundraiser on May 10th. A Match Made in Heaven, Catherine Bernhardt and Jeremy Scott, brings together contemporary artist Catherine Bernhardt, born 1975, St. Louis, Missouri, and American fashion designer Jeremy Scott, also born in 1975 and from Kansas City, Missouri, both known for their creative work that engages the themes of consumer and popular culture and irreverent humor, creating a dynamic pop culture extravaganza. Proceeds of the gala will support the Nerman Museum operations and art education activities and JCCC Historical Fashion Collection preservation. Save the date. You don't want to miss this unique event. Again, it's May 10th. And more information can be found at nermanmuseum.org/match, MATCH. Also, save the date for the 3rd annual SIPs and Scholarships event on June the 26th, 2025 at the Wiley Hospitality and Culinary Academy. Sandy Green and Tracy Osborne Olchen are co-chairs of this event. Stay tuned for more details. The foundation recently received a $98,000 pledge to fund 18 student scholarships in the 2025-2026 year, and is to help support the Better Tomorrow Fund, which is the partnership between continuing education and the N-Circle program. Save the date for the upcoming JCCC Foundation Community Social. This is on March 11th at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. in Rainier Atrium. The Nerman Museum will be open during the social, and attendees can go and tour the Match Made in Heaven exhibit. You're also invited to attend the JCCC Foundation Scholarship Luncheon. This is always a favorite event, especially among us trustees, where we get to know our scholarship recipients. This will be on April the 22nd in the Capitol Federal Room in the Rainier Center. April 22nd. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Excellent report. Thank you for that. Any questions for Trustee Rattan? There's always something exciting going on with the foundation. It's always wonderful to hear about it. I have SIPs and scholarships marked on my calendar because this year it does not conflict with a board meeting. And so we'll be able to attend and fully enjoy the event. It's a wonderful event.
I will say that several of us trustees went to the Match Made in Heaven presentation, and it was pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Pretty cool. All right, terrific. Okay, that concludes our board reports. Next up are the committee reports, and the first committee report's the audit committee report. And so I'll deliver that report. The audit committee met on February 6th, 2025 in the Hughes Spear boardroom right here. We got a quarterly projects update from Jeff Johnson, the Director of Audit and Advisory Services. He provided an update on the activities of the last quarter and internal audits plans for the forthcoming quarter. This encompassed information on the restructuring of the hotline function, the revision of Policy 210.5 internal and external audit policies, the status and reporting timelines for the procurement services audit, and their plans for the next audit. Additionally, Mr. Johnson conveyed his intention to attend the Great Audit Minds Conference hosted by the Institute of Internal Auditors, which just sounds like an absolutely stunning event. All in good fun. All in good fun.
But they're like real auditors.
What's that?
They're auditors, right?
Yes, they're auditors.
They're real
great
auditors.
minds. They're great audit minds.
Not pseudo auditors.
Right. Okay, we'll move on. Mr. Johnson also presented the status of the recommendations from the payroll process design effectiveness audit. Out of the 14 recommendations made in July of 2024, 4 remain open. Regarding the JCCC ethics report line between October 29th, 2024 and January 28th, 2025, there were 4 reports received, 2 of which were submitted by identified reporters and 2 of which were anonymous. As of January 28th, 2025, all these reports have been reviewed, addressed, and closed. During the same period, 20 reports were received via human resource channels. 15 of these have been reviewed, addressed, and closed, and 5 remain in process. In total, 24 reports were received, with 5 of those still open. All previously reported cases have been addressed and closed. And that concludes my report. Any questions? All right. Next is the collegial steering report. The collegial steering committee met that same day, February 6th, 2025. I'm going to lose my voice yet. We had a robust discussion about dual enrolled students at the high school level and our interaction with those instructors in the high schools to make sure that those students are receiving the quality of education that they need to receive in order to get the full benefit of the instruction. And that's all I have from the collegial steering committee. Trustee Smith Everett, did you have anything for either of those reports?
No, ma'am. I was not able to attend the audit committee meeting, so I have no comments. Although I guess I did have a question. Are we, a couple months ago at the audit committee, we talked about doing a little bit of a PR to educate the community about ethics reporting and how to use that. Is that something up and running, or are we still working on getting some stuff rolled out for people? Because it just always seems that the amount of reports we're getting are so much lower than they were pre-COVID.
Yeah, and Jeff, I don't know if you want to speak to that or not. I know that that's something that you've been working on, is making folks more aware of the ethics report line and how to use it to go about reporting their concerns.
Yeah, so the ethics report line, we've kind of hit this in a couple different phases. Right now, the first phase was working on the back end and smoothing out the processes and the flow that we receive cases. Now the next phase that we're going into is more of that promotional phase and cleaning up some of the things that the front-facing items that people see and getting that promotion out there.
Okay. So it's in the works?
In the works.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Any other questions about the collegial steering committee report? All right, hearing none. Next up is the Management and Finance Committee report. Trustee Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Management and Finance Committee convened in this room at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, February 5th. The information related to this meeting can be found on pages 3 through 5 of the board packet. Incidentally, that's 5 through 7 on the scroll of your PDF. The Management and Finance Committee received the following reports from staff. Ashante Thompson, Executive Director, Auxiliary Services, presented an update on auxiliary enterprises. He reviewed the auxiliary services policy, which is 220.00, and then provided operational updates on the campus bookstore, dining services, and Hirschsteiner Child Development Center. The presentation also included financial results from the past 5 years. Tom Hull, Associate Vice President, Campus Services and Facility Planning, informed the committee that the college had engaged with a civil engineering firm to prepare a plat map of the main campus as required by the City of Overland Park. The college's preliminary plat application will be considered by the City Planning Commission at a public hearing on Monday, March 10th, 2025. Notification of the public hearing will be sent to surrounding property owners according to the required timeline. Board action is not required. Tom Hall gave an update on facilities projects from the capital acquisitions and improvements matrix. Turn page. The Management and Finance Committee has the following recommendations to present this evening. Jim Fikert, Executive Director of Procurement Services, reviewed one bid recommendation. It's for solid waste disposal and recycling services. So with that, it is the recommendation of the Management and Finance Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the proposal from GFL for the base year of $65,103 and a total estimated expenditure of $345,640 throughout the renewal options. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my report.
Whoa, I so move.
Yeah, he's moved on the recommendation. Sorry.
All right, I have a motion by Trustee Cross, a second by Trustee Hamel. Any discussion on the recommendation? Trustee Smith-Everett.
They are the most expensive. I wondered if you could answer why we chose them.
Because the other two bidders did not include recycling in their proposal.
Perfect. It was a check to see if you were paying attention at any meeting,
I
Trustee
think you're
Mitchell.
soft on waste.
All right, that was a great answer, actually, because I was wondering the same thing. Any other questions?
I went too
Discussion.
defensive, I'm sorry.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now are you concluding?
And again,
your
thank you,
report?
Madam Chair. That concludes my report.
Perfect.
I got a little overly excited there.
Of course, I have a question.
Yes.
Again, maybe just testing you on how much you were paying attention at the board meeting, or at the committee meeting. Is it typical that we submit a plat?
So the story on that is in the past, we were under the purview of the state fire marshal, excuse me, for any building upgrades or construction that went on campus. We're not necessarily anticipating any urgently, but now the City of Overland Park is responsible for that, and they require that we have a plat.
Okay.
And it's interesting that heretofore we haven't had one, so.
Yeah, I couldn't recall a time that had ever come up that I would have taken note of, so thank you for that.
You bet.
All right. Now is Trustee Mitchell concluded with his report?
He is indeed.
So moved.
All right. Next on the agenda is the Student Success Committee report. And Trustee Jennings, are you going to give that report or have you delegated that? All right, Trustee Hamel.
I have not. Oh, go for it.
We got you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Student Success Committee met at 11:15 a.m. on Wednesday, February 5th. Information related to the meeting can be found on pages 6 and 7 of the board packet. There were some curriculum updates from Doug Patterson, presented new courses, course modifications, course deactivations, a new program modifications, program deactivations, and general education designations effective for the 25-26 academic school year. Jim Lane, Dean of Arts, Design, Humanities, and Social Sciences, made a recommendation with the academic calendar, basically to change 2 dates. Details will be found in the consent agenda on the board packet. Does this need a recommendation?
It's in the consent agenda.
Okay, so I didn't see that in there.
recommendation is.
Do we have to make the recommendation?
Nope, it'll be in the consent
Okay.
agenda.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that's right. Okay, thank you. Melinda Bryan Smith, Executive Director, Grants Development, and Anthony Finari, Senior, Grant Professional, provided a report on grants leadership and development. The report included a life cycle of a grant, highlighted many of the awarded grants. Total grant dollars awarded for the 23-24 year from federal, state, and private funding was $3.8 million, with 47 active grants totaling $6.9 million. We also heard from Dr. Mickey McLeod, Provost, presented the life cycle for the academic programs. Dr. McLeod explained the process of creating a new program, maintaining the program, and if necessary, sunsetting of a program. He highlighted the cycle of maintaining a program is through a 5-year review process with annual reviews focusing on program accomplishments, data, trends, and vitality assessments. And Mr. McLeod is going to go over a few of those details right now.
Dr. McLeod, it's all yours.
All right. We have our queued up. There we go. So I will shorten this so as not to act as human Xanax for the folks out out in the peanut gallery here. So I'll try to not make it the 25-minute explanation I gave at the committee, and we'll make it about 5, and then I'll open it up for questions. If you look at our life cycle, there is three pieces to a life cycle of a program. There's acquisition of a new program, monitoring of that program during its life, and then if it reaches an endpoint, deactivation. During acquisition, we get ideas for programs from multiple sources across the community. That can come from meetings with regional stakeholders occasionally, concepts raised by advisory committee members, many of whom represent businesses and stakeholders in the community who are utilizing our programs to build their workforces. In some cases, we have local and regional employment needs that are brought to us by the state, or new transfer opportunities on the transfer side as we see programs inaugurated at the university level with changing requirements that require us to kind of spool up some newer things to have a student ready for those new job opportunities at the end of that baccalaureate pipeline that we might not have seen coming. We occasionally get inquiries from local chambers of commerce as part of bringing businesses into the area if we have appropriate programming, and so occasionally that can spark some conversation about spooling up new programs. And then there is internal analysis of interest or needs from students or employers who have engaged us through many of the survey tools or other opportunities that we have across the campus. When an idea seems to fit the mission and goals of the campus and is in line with the strategic plan, we put it through a vetting process. That process includes an environmental scan, wherein institutional research will go out and look at the number of jobs fitting a certain what we call SIP and SOC codes. Those are state codes or federal codes that outline a specific job and field. And so we can search federal databases through those numbers and look at what the hiring is right now in our region. We can pull down job requirements for those positions and see whether associate's degrees are appropriate or bachelor's degrees are required. We can also look at pay differentials, whether or not it meets a living wage standard, and what growth might look like in the next 5 to 10 years or so. We have extrapolation of data to look at if we were to open a program based on what the field has looked like before for about 5 years and what we think it will look like in 5 years from the future. Would this be a program where we would want to stand up a permanent program because the field is constantly evolving? Or is this the sort of thing wherein we would train up, 150 people, they would eat up all the jobs in the region, and then we would no longer need the program? Because in that case, we would look at it as more of a continuing education opportunity, something more short-term as opposed to standing up a permanent program. And then we have to look at the consideration of facility and personnel needs if we were going to ramp up a program. If sufficient parameters are favorable, we move to the next phase. In that next phase, we engage our faculty in curriculum design. In some cases, we have appropriate faculty in-house. One of the newer examples being our plumbing program, where we had Dr. Howard Hendren over in heating, ventilation, and AC, who was also a master plumber. So we were able to give some extra duty time to Howard to build the curriculum for plumbing without us having to go out and hire someone to come in from the outside to design new curriculum for us. But there have been cases in the past where we've had to go out and bring somebody in the field in from externally to build initial curriculum for us so that we could spend that time going out to find a person to hire. And sometimes retirees in a field will pick up work like that. Faculty qualifications have to be designated, so we have to look at what department they would sit in, and then we file with HLC what the parameters would be for our new program and what we would require for a person to teach said program. We have to look at space allocations across campus. Do we need new lab spaces? Particular equipment that we do not own that would be necessary to spool up a new program. And then we have all of that together. We present it for ratification to Educational Affairs because that process actually gets it into our catalog. So we have to go through our curriculum process to get it into the catalog so that a new program can actually be listed as part of the offerings in our catalog, which is how we track students coming in. Because the catalog of record, if you remember your undergraduate opportunities, your catalog of record under which you came in determines your graduation requirements. So if the program shifts while you're in it, you're held responsible to what you entered in as a freshman, not the new one unless you have transferred voluntarily to the new catalog. So there's a lot of kind of legalese that we have to undergo there. And then we submit the new program once it's through our process to KBOR because it has to be filed with the Board of Regents. Track completers, folks entering the program. There's a slew of data that goes out every year and goes to KBOR on every program we offer. And then we submit a final program schematic to HLC, which becomes part of our institutional profile for when they do our accreditation visits. And then our catalog of record is set and we move forward. Once we enter the monitoring phase, once we have stood up a new program, we have adjusted what used to be a 3-year cycle for program review has been adjusted to 5 years. We've stretched that out so that we are doing fewer programs per year because it started to get a little hectic. As we've added more programs to our portfolio in the last few years, it's gotten, of course, more cumbersome to try and fit all of them into 3 years. So we've extended that into a 5-year review process. That is a 3-part process: your comprehensive review, feedback of your original comprehensive review, and then annual reviews. The comprehensive review looks at a program summary of what the program is. We look at student success, what co-curricular activities are part of what frames those students on the campus, and we look at how do we get student success out of it. We look at the current curriculum. What are the activities that we have for honors within that program, if any, and then what honors have the faculty garnered within that, and what are the faculty successes as they have built this? Where have they presented? Where have they gone to gather new information to stay current in the field so that we continue to evolve with the program? And then what are the program accomplishments? And we look at our data and trends, numbers of students entering, graduating, folks who have left for occupational opportunities. Are they working within the field? So there are a number of factors that go into our data and trends. And then how is that currently aligned to the mission as it stands of the institution? And what does it cost us? Because programs fluctuate in cost over time. Particularly ones that have lots of equipment. As the equipment gets more complex and larger, the cost to deliver gets higher. And so we have to always look at that fiscal resource narrative. And then we look at external constituencies and significant trends. Are our programs more well connected to other programs on campus? Are there significant trends at the federal level in terms of our governance? Are there national things happening? Are there things happening in the region where we're seeing more employers in a particular field and therefore a need for more individuals, which we're seeing in machining right now? More and more folks needed as folks are building newer companies in the region. We're seeing the need for machinists ramping up, and so we're having to kind of spool up more things into that program. And then an academic program vitality reflection, and that is done by the dean. And I'll get to that a little more here shortly. We then have a peer review committee, and so Each unit then is provided feedback by the Academic Program Review Committee. It's assigned to a small team of faculty members outside of the discipline. So they don't know anything about your program, but they read what you said about the program and then give you feedback on, okay, maybe you could explain this better, maybe you could explain that better. This piece of fiscal makes sense, but I don't understand why it's framed in this way. And so you're kind of, the point is to get eyes that are not knowledgeable about what you do so that we don't kind of get caught up in our own jargon, so to speak. And then there's a dean's review. And the dean's review looks at the demand for the program, and exceptional, acceptable, marginal are the ratings that we can give in a dean's review. So how much demand is there for the program in terms of number of students coming and going? What is the quality of the program based on what we've articulated within the review? How are we utilizing resources? Do we need to rethink our spending, the way in which we have allocated resources? Do we need to ask for more resources? Is there a need for more equipment, different equipment, that sort of thing? And then there is a vitality recommendation that comes at the end of that. And in that recommendation, the dean looks at it and says we either need to enhance, which is to put more resources and money behind it, maintain support, things are going along swimmingly, we need to leave it alone and let it run. Revitalization, are we slipping down the hill and things aren't looking good, and so we need to maybe think about more advertising, newer equipment, thinking about retooling of our curriculum because it's no longer as relevant, things to revitalize the program. And once a program has lived in revitalization and has not been able to climb out of that level for 3 to 5 years, then we can start to consider suspending or phasing out that program and reallocating those resources elsewhere because the program is kind of slowly dying, so to speak, and we have not been able to kind of lift it back up and get more interest going. In the years in between the comprehensive review, we do an annual review in the off years, and we go back and we look at your summary, priorities, and goals that you had set during your comprehensive. What are your program accomplishments? What is the data telling us we need to maybe adjust or think about this year? Is the fiscal resource narrative solid still, or are there things we need to consider? Are there external constituency changes that we need to think about this year? Because even though it might not be your comprehensive cycle, just because you went through comprehensive in 2023 and 2025, there might be a significant move. We don't want to be sitting on our hands and waiting until 2028 to actually address changes that need to happen. And so there's always the need for annual looks at each of our programs, and then that vitality assessment again. If we reach a stage where deactivation looks like it is imminent, we have a discussion in educational affairs to let folks recognize that the program data and trends are being presented and we need to think about pulling the program back, that we are going to, as an administration, recommend taking that down. We vote on a recommendation for phasing out.
Who votes?
The faculty in Ed Affairs votes on a recommendation to phase out. And then once we determine whether we're going to phase out, there are steps that we have to take to make sure that we don't leave any students in the lurch. We design a teach-out plan to phase the program out. So we look at the student impact, how many folks are there who are current majors of said program, what catalog did they enter under, how many classes do they have left to take, because you don't want to ever leave a student without an option to actually complete their degree. And by HLC rule, we are required to provide time and a half for completion. So if a student has entered the program and they are in their first year, then if we determined in the fall that we're going to phase a program out, but it had freshmen entering, we won't be phasing the program out fully for 3 years because we have to offer them time and a half to actually complete the catalog they entered under. So we're going to give them 3 years because it's a 2-year degree, they get time and a half to be able to finish that degree. And so we then set a calendar for our action in terms of when we will begin to phase out and how we will work through these things. Presentation of the phase out then happens at the Student Success Committee for notification of the board that these are decisions the administration has made and we're moving forward with phasing out the program. And then we have to submit all of our phase-out plans to HLC, which are kept on record there, so that any student who completes during this time has their rights protected to be able to appeal to HLC if they felt that they didn't have a fair shot at actually completing the degree. And then we post notices to students concerning the program completion timelines, usually on the program page that we have up for that particular program, as well as students receive letters sent by snail mail, because we still do that. So they get emails and posted mail that shows them the program will be phased out. Here's the timeline. Please come in and speak to your lead faculty member or a counselor. If you think that you would like to change majors, you can come in and talk to a counselor. We can avail you of options that will take the classes that you have already taken so that you don't lose credits and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of process in the background that happens there. And then we begin sunsetting of the courses during the teach out. So if we had a set of students at the front end, everybody finished the 101 level class, we would then phase the 101 level class out and it would be removed from the digital catalog. And then as everybody takes 102, so it's slowly, they start to drop away as the students matriculate their way through the coursework. And then we alert KBOR, and KBOR will have you remove it from the active database because there will be no new students, but we still have to report on it until the last folks have reached their date of sunset. So we do have to still report all the way through the end of that cycle. For ease of understanding, here are the kind of ways in which you can think about that, and just arrows that flow from left to right. And I will stand for questions. That's kind of the quick and dirty version.
I know we covered this in the committee meeting, but can you discuss the whole time and a half thing and overlay cosmetology situation over the time and a half timeline?
Yeah, so with cosmetology, it was a little bit of an interesting situation because the faculty in cosmetology had asked to not take in new students. While they were in the third or fourth year of their revitalization, they wanted to redo their curriculum, but they felt that they did not have time to teach an old cohort, a new cohort, and redo the curriculum. And so they asked to not take in new students while they were doing the curriculum so they could teach out the folks under the old program and then use all of that extra time. Instead of teaching classes, we were paying them basically to redo the curriculum and think about their asks for the program. And so we acquiesced, allowed them to do that. When we reached the point where we determined that there really was not a way for us to spool the program up without determining that we needed to either ask for substantial more resources or we needed to determine sunset. We did not have students sitting in that pipeline. So once we got there with Cosmo and aesthetics, we did not have students in the pipeline, so the teach out was effectively just the students who were left to finish their last couple of classes because they were already there. Nail tech, it was a different situation because nail technology is only a one semester certificate, so there was no time and a half needed. Those folks, we had just seated that class, they were able to finish in their 12-week timeline and they were all done. And so there were no new students.
And so you said that the faculty asked to stop enrollment because just in my memory, it feels like they were saying they had done interviews and they had people on the pipeline.
They did. They did.
So
and then they asked
maybe
for.
Maybe he said, she said on who stopped.
Yeah, it was a situation where they asked not to take in new folks, but they did have folks waiting because they were planning on taking a new class when we got to the other side of this if they thought the new curriculum would be successful. Okay. And at that point, as we were working through that, the full-time faculty resigned. The aesthetics and Cosmo left the institution, and so we had no full-time faculty. And we had no fully actualized new curriculum because they had not yet completed that work. And so that left us with what effectively was a time that we needed to have that discussion, because we either needed to double down and hire brand new faculty and try to move forward without a full curriculum being completed, or we needed to make a decision on where we're going to go.
And my final question, do you think that if we had had a full slate faculty-wise, that cosmetology would have gotten the full time and a half to finish out their...
If we had had students...
Did the faculty leaving make that program end more abruptly? I guess that's the short answer.
It did not make it end more abruptly, because at that point, we did not have new students in the pipeline, so we were going to end at the point at which we finished the teach out anyway. Had we not allowed them to suspend the new incoming class to take that extra time to work on their curriculum as they asked for, we would have had more students in the pipeline, and so it would have been extended out, because we would have had to have finished those students if we reached the same decision point. We still would have had to meet those students where they were and get them through the pipeline.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. McLeod? Trustee Smith Everett and then Trustee Mitchell.
Thank you. So the annual review, who does that go to?
That goes to the Office of Assessment and to the deans, and to the Instructional Deans Council.
So, okay, so it's like a council?
The Instructional Deans Council is the sitting deans across all of the disciplines at the institution. So there are 7 deans who meet regularly for all of our academic needs. But the yearly review actually goes to the Office of Assessment, where it is filed, and then the deans provide the vitality assessment every year. So they're looking at that every year.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is, my program isn't doing well. We were just comprehensively reviewed 2 years ago. Classes, students have dropped off by 30 to 40%. Who's looking over that? And who decides that it then goes on to revitalization?
The dean.
Okay, the dean of
that academic area.
Okay. And then how long can so what does it take to get into revitalization, and how long can a program be in the revitalization status?
At this point, we have always tried to let a program be in revitalization for a full review cycle. So you can be, it used to be 3 years. As of this year, as we're lengthening it out, it will be a possibility of up to 5 years, unless something really goes wrong and it just tanks worse than we can deal with. And what it takes to get into revitalization usually depends on both. There are a number of factors. It depends upon the original size of the program. It depends upon the rationale for the size, because we do have some programs that are de facto smaller than others, and they have always been smaller. And so it's hard to say that it would take a 50% loss or a 40% loss, because that's a very different fiscal narrative depending on the end you started with. If we lost a third of everybody who was in the nursing program all at once, it would be a much larger hit because of the cost and size of that program than if we lost the same percentage of individuals in data science, which is only a program of about 50 people to begin with. So it depends on multiple factors within the review.
So does the Office of Assessment look, I guess that seems like a fairly big undertaking every year to get all these annual reviews and then sort through them and determine, like, okay, this program that, student drop off or the equipment or whatever is causing a problem for us, and we need to put them on the board for taking a look at what we can do. I'm trying to figure out who's got that responsibility.
Again, the deans own that, and that's why the programs are split. So every program is not under review at the same time. That 5-year cycle is staggered to allow the deans to be able to look at their programs each year. And so it depends on which.
This annual report is every year, right?
The annual report is every year, but it is significantly smaller than the big report, the comprehensive. And so the deans are responsible for looking at those on their programs every year.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Mitchell.
Do you have a sense, like in a general sense, how successful revitalization efforts are? Like, out of every 10 programs that go into revitalization, we're able to save 5 on average, or? do you have
I'd
an
say
idea?
it's actually very successful in that we've only had to I've been here almost a decade, and we've sunset probably a grand total of 3 programs in that time. So I would say it's been pretty successful all the way across the board. And we usually have probably between 5 and 8 programs that hit revitalization in every cycle in some metric in some way.
Because the reason why I ask is I think that there has to be some programs that just, you can do everything possible, and it might be a challenge to revitalize it. If we have a program in buggy whip manufacturing, and it's 1913, and enrollment is falling off, we're not going to save that program.
Yes.
Of course, it isn't 1913, but you get the point.
That does happen pretty frequently. I mean, I go back to a previously sunset program that we had in entrepreneurship, whereby what we determined at the end was that there was a portion of the program that was very successful. The set of courses that actually led to the business plan certificate were all very robust, and then the rest of the program around it had died, which at the end, we saved the suite of classes that that composed that business plan certificate, embedded that back into the business administration department, and then sunset the rest of the courses and the degree in entrepreneurship itself. So there are times when there are very healthy portions of a program, even though the overall degree is not healthy, there are parts of it that are still very vital and useful.
Okay.
Trustee Rattan.
When you talk about revitalization, who all's involved in that again?
That depends on what portion of revitalization we determine needs to happen. The dean, the chief academic officer, myself, chair of the department usually are involved in conversations about what does it look like we need to do? Do we think it's a marketing issue? Do we need to try some new marketing pieces? Is it because we think we have old equipment and things are outdated and students aren't interested because they have worked with better equipment in the field at a previous stop and we need to do something with that? But it usually starts with the chair of the department, the dean, chief academic officer, and myself, and then as we have these conversations, oftentimes the chair will then bring in key faculty members in the department as if they have a specific outlook on, if they have a specialist who knows this particular kind of equipment more than everybody else, then that person comes in to speak to equipment issues.
That was in my secondary question when I asked who is, I think, you say revitalization. If I'm a part of revitalization and I'm faculty, do I have the tools to really revitalize? I might think we revitalize by going left, but really we revitalize by going right. And, what are best practices? Are they given those tools to know what revitalization is?
Yes.
And what direction they need to go in?
There are often conversations that go into revitalization, as well as involving our folks in institutional research if we need deeper research or background understanding of the field, of changes in the region. So those conversations can get pretty in-depth and can involve a dozen or more folks as we think about those things.
And my final, and as I understand, we're going to get a quarterly list of programs at risk?
Yearly. We will probably be looking yearly at our at the student success calendar and then bringing a list of any programs that have hit revitalization during that annual period. Likely that will be, since we don't meet in July usually, it will the dean's revitalization review is due in June, so it will likely be the August meeting of each year.
Thank you.
Trustee Hamel.
I feel like I'm going to know the answer as soon as you say it, but when you're going through program review, whether it's an annual or the deep dive, sometimes the program is absolutely fine, but there's maybe a class or two in there Does those get identified during the annual review and you just kind of have to fix a class or two without going through the whole process, or?
Yep.
How does that, is that it basically?
That is exactly how that happens. If you have a particular course that no longer works, a core example for that would be about 3 years ago, CSIT went through their review and recognized that while C++ has been the standard for 30 years, that Amazon's Python language had overtaken it, and so we decommissioned a suite of the C++ training and created a completely new Python course that is now part of the CSIT set of offerings. So that is part of this constant look at our curriculum.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for that wonderful 5-minute presentation.
I try real hard, but I talk a lot.
I could tell.
Sorry.
Well, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay. Next up is the President's recommendation for action, and the first item on that agenda is the Treasurer's report. And Trustee Hamel, what do you got for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board packet includes the Treasurer report for the month ending December 31st of 2024. Some items of note: the state operating payments of $12.4 million and an ad valorem property tax distribution of $71.9 million were received during January and will be reflected in the next month's report. Expenditures of the primary operating funds are within the approved budgetary limits. It is my recommendation of the college administration that the Board of Trustees approve the Treasurer's report for the month ended December 2024, subject to audit.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Trustee Mitchell? No, Trustee Rattan.
Yeah.
And seconded by Trustee
Smith
Smith-Everett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Trustee Jennings. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. You may proceed with your report.
That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you for that. Next up is Dr. Korb and her monthly report to the board. What do you have for us?
Okay, I have a short report.
Okay.
So.
It'll be 5 minutes?
It will be less than that. Did you set a timer?
I am right now.
So I was also going to mention Match Made in Heaven, which was a very interesting event, and we did have over 1,000 people, or around 1,000 people, and it was just amazing to look at the. We were commenting on the age range because you had very, very young people and all the way up to the other end of the spectrum. I mean, it was just an interesting group, and it was interesting that everybody was so into the art and the fashion design, and so it was really a cool event, great kickoff for that. So if you haven't seen it, you really need to go see it because it's pretty amazing. So several of us attended the annual ACCT conference in DC last week, which included an opportunity to visit with some of our elected officials. So we really appreciated the time that we were able to spend with Representative Sharice Davids, Senator Roger Marshall, and Senator Jerry Moran. So we spent just a little bit of time with each. The conference was, of course, interesting times in DC right now. And several of the topics, like some of the primary topics that would come up in the sessions, were the future of the Department of Education, immigration, of course, changes in DEI, and affirmative action. And so there was a lot of discussion, but even though we had a lot of discussion, the primary message that I took away from that is these changes are still evolving, and so no one really knows. And so we are just at Johnson County Community College trying to remain flexible and just to continue to evaluate all of the related activities and make sure that we're moving in the right direction as we get more information. So, but it was interesting. It was good to hear some of those conversations. I have just a little brief information on enrollment. At Census Day, we ended up at 3% up in total headcount and 4.1% in credit hours. And in workforce development, they have 13,777 enrollments. right now, and that is 78% toward their enrollment goal of 17,772. So they're doing very, very well.
They're just going to take off April, May, and June, right?
I know, they're going to go on vacation.
Yeah.
And so,
it's
yeah.
going to be all
but
done by then.
They're doing very well this year, so. And that concludes my report. How long was it?
It was less than 5 minutes.
I told you. Okay.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Korb?
No.
Trustee Rattan?
I would say also the bottom line is I think a lot of us voice that no matter what happens, we're still going to invest in student success and we're going to find a way.
Absolutely.
That was one of my takeaways. And then I really felt like all three of the representatives from Kansas were very strong in voicing their support for community colleges.
Very much so.
That's it.
I'm very jealous.
Even
because
Sharice Davis?
Last time I went to ACCT, only one of our federal delegation could see us. And their staff are lovely, but it's not the same. And you guys got the fancy pictures that some of us
Get the fancy pictures.
some of us didn't get last time.
You know, I would echo what Trustee Rattan said. I felt like Representative Davids and Senators Marshall and Moran both, all three of them, took time to visit with us and listen. I always feel like Senator Moran is incredibly engaged with our community, as is Representative Davids. Of course, she's an alum. They were very engaged in listening to us and kind of letting us know what things were important to them as well, which is always good to hear. So it was a very worthwhile trip. It wasn't nearly as chaotic in Washington, D.C. as I had anticipated it was going to be, particularly among our congressmen and women. I felt like they were the calm in the storm, and that was good for us to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So all in all, I feel like it was a worthwhile trip, except for this virus that followed me back from D.C. But okay, thank you for your report. Next up is new business. I'm not aware of any new business. I'm not aware of any old business either, which brings us to our consent agenda. The consent agenda is an opportunity for the board to take up in a single motion matters of a fairly routine nature. And I will first ask if there is anyone who wants to remove something from the consent agenda for separate consideration. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Cross, seconded by Trustee Smith Everett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now, for some of you, I have unfortunate news, and for the rest of you, it's about time for you to go home. We have not one, not two, but 3 executive sessions this evening.
Sweet.
So right now, all of you are feeling this great sense of relief, while my fellow board members are thinking, oh my gosh, did I know that? So we'll just get rolling on those, starting with executive session number 1. And at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for consultation with legal counsel for the purpose of seeking legal guidance, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship. No action will be taken during this session. The executive session will last for 45 minutes, beginning at, can we start at 6:45? Will that give everybody time for a brief bio break?
Yes, please.
We'll start at 6:45 and end at 7:30 p.m., at which time open session will resume at this same location. We would like to invite all of the trustees, Dr. Judy Korb, Dr. Mickey McLeod, Christina McGee, Chris Gray, and Kelsey Nazar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Mitchell, seconded by Trustee Cross. Any discussion?
Negative.
Hearing none, and by the way, Trustee Jennings will be joining us virtually in the executive session as well. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
I always like that, Trustee Jennings.
We'll reconvene in executive session at 6:45. All right. right, it's 7:30. We have emerged from executive session. No action was taken. And at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into a second executive session for consultation with legal counsel regarding a pending personnel matter, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship. No action will be taken during this session. The executive session will last for 30 minutes, beginning at 7:33 and ending at 8:03.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Mitchell, seconded by trustee Cross. Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll reconvene in executive session number 2 at 7:33. We have returned from executive session. It is 8:03 p.m. No action was taken. And that brings us to our third executive session. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for consultation with legal counsel regarding negotiation of a contract which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship.
So moved.
No action will be taken during this session. The executive session will last for 30 minutes, beginning at 8:05 and ending at 8:35 p.m., at which time open session will resume at this same location. We'd like to invite all of the trustees, Dr. Judy Korb, Dr. Mickey McLeod, Dr. Gurbashan Singh, and Kelsey Nazar. Do I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Cross, seconded by
Prepackaged.
trustee Mitchell.
Prepackaged motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll reconvene in executive session at 8:05 p.m. It is 8:35. We have returned from executive session. No action was taken. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second?
I have a motion by trustee Mitchell, seconded by trustee Smith Everett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you all.